Nah, and that's what I'm about, right? Like I'm going back through my some stories that I know about some black players from back in the day playing at like Tennessee State, Grambling, whatnot, and I'm amazed at just all this talent that came out of like at one point there were 38 black players from HBCUs that were all pro from 1963 to 1968, and they are trying to say we can't play quarterback because well like y'all move around, yeah, because you need to be able to do that now, right? And you need to be able to do that then. But I'm going to get back on topic here. So in thinking about what Steve Sarkisian's been able to do and what he was able to do with Matt and with the Joker, I'm looking at Kyle Flood going, all right, get that offensive line right. Because it's like Sam Cosmi was wasted. Full stop. Full stop. Like, no one had – you throwing screen passes to that dude. I never forget that. West Virginia. Nah, we going to throw it back to him. To an offensive lineman? To a tackle?
They did have an awesome big man collision in the end zone, too, with one of the Stills brothers, which was hilarious.
But no, like, that's what I want to see. I want to see Kyle Flood work his magic on that offensive line, right? You got skill players. You're always going to have skill players. That's what's so infuriating about Texas, right? It's not that you just got Bijan. It's that Jake is still there. It's that Jordan Whittington is still there, right? It's that Joshua Moore. Let me say his whole name, Mama. Joshua Moore is still there, right? I mean, yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your Ohio State quarterbacks. Where were you wanting to go with this?
So I want to get I mean, I have a couple things.
Yeah.
C.J. Stroud, who you brought up Blake Barnett. C.J. Stroud, former Elite 11 MVP. A lot of these names that we've brought up are whether it's Tua, and some of the other people that we discussed already. Just his presence and how Ohio State's recruited, this quarterback room and going into 2022. So they got Stroud out of California. He played a little bit last year behind Justin Fields. Then you have Jack Miller from Arizona, who was injured coming out of high school, but he's got, live arm talent and he's big. He's 6'4" himself. And then you have the kid from Philadelphia, McCord, coming in, who, when you look at his film, it's like, okay, I can see why Zach Poff and people like that were excited about him potentially winning that job. So I think that's one of the most fascinating quarterback battles because of what kingdom they'll inherit. It's insane the Ohio State wide receiver room and the weapons that they'll have right off jump. But when I'm looking at this brother CJ Stroud and his story out of California, because he didn't come up the traditional path.
Rancho Cucamonga. That's where the man's from. That's where he's from. Yeah, I know. Like somebody got that.
I always laugh because that's the high school from Bring It On. Go Toros.
It's also where next Friday is set.
You're right.
Yep. That's what I always think about. I always think about Rancho Cucamonga in the context of Cube.
Day-Day's uncle.
Yeah. Uncle Elroy.
Day-Day's dad. Day-Day's,
and Craig's uncle.
Craig's uncle, yeah.
Oh, my God.
You're right.
And Chico and Big Joker and Baby Joker and Little Joker.
And Little Joker. Yep.
All right, so Rancho Cucamonga and CJ Stroud.
I think, when you see people that have the story like that the young man does, and how he kind of willed himself into the whole, because I started with the Elite 11 thing.
Right.
Because he ended up as Elite 11 MVP and he came out of nowhere.
Right.
That doesn't normally happen. Mm-hmm. And so when people like that those type of things catch my attention, because that tells me that you have the temperament ready to handle some of the things, the pressures at Ohio State, because people are going to expect the party to keep going. Like, they're not going to want to wait for, development, especially with him already having a year under his belt, being there, and what Ryan Day's already done with the last two quarterbacks he's had. I know Urban Meyer was there technically, but Ryan Day was instrumental with Dwayne Haskins, and then transitioning right into Justin Fields and what he did coming in. I look at this brother CJ Stroud, and I think he could be the next one.
I've obviously been following his journey for the better part of 18 months now, right? So let me walk this out for folks, because I feel like the Jack Miller clan is about to come for everybody. Now, and because I'm the person saying Jack Miller's name, I don't know anybody else saying Jack Miller's name.
Jack Miller's really good for the Jack Miller clan. Yeah, that's why this is a conversation,
right? But I'm just throwing that out there, right? Because I put a poll up on the community tab on my channel. Speaking of which, there is a pinned comment from the only other moderator on the channel, Dr. Winston O. Boogie. Go subscribe to Fanatic Perspective. That is Steven's channel. They do excellent work. Obviously talking about Texas, but he gets into basketball. He gets into Dallas Cowboys. Y'all know me. I don't really mess with college basketball like that. I'm not that kind of dude. But Steven over there about it. Now, when Patty Gasso came out today and said, this is going to be the best outfield we've ever had, the most athletic infield that we've ever had, you have my attention, OU softball. That said, the CJ Stroud story is awesome because it's what we missed all of last year and what we might miss most of this year. That man was ranked 843rd in March of 2020. He went to Elite 11 in California and rode those regionals to becoming Elite 11 MVP, earns an offer from Ryan Day and Ohio State, and becomes the second quarterback taken in that class. Jack Miller got in first in that July 2019 term. I think that timeline is right? Coming out of Arizona, coming out of, I think it was Chandler. I got to go check this out. But that dude didn't play behind an offensive line that was worth a damn, and still set an Arizona State record for passing touchdowns. Okay? He has the goods. He just doesn't have the story of Stroud, right? And both of those dudes end up 4 stars. People forget this. Kyle McCord is the only one on the depth chart who ended his career rated as a 5-star. And you mentioned coming out of St. Joe's and Philly. You know who else coming out of St. Joe's and Philly going up there at Ohio State? Marvin Harrison Jr., top 100 player and one of the better wide receivers in the country, right? Shout out Harvin Marison for those of y'all that understand that reference. But Kyle McCord's going to have somebody to throw to that he knows, that he's already formed a relationship with. And no matter what happens this year, he's going to compete again for it the next year and possibly the next. What you're worried about now at Ohio State, I think, is the transfer portal. But I made this argument earlier last week, and I will continue to make it. Ohio State is beginning to build the way that Alabama builds. You know, last check, only 4 guys off the 2020 Alabama roster entered the transfer portal. 4. Dudes from Bama don't transfer. They buy in. They'll stay. They'll figure it out. Like, Najee Harris could have gone into the NFL draft last year. Might have been a 3rd, 4th round pick. Comes back, we're talking about him in the Heisman Trophy conversation because it was his turn, right? At Ohio State, you're looking at that wide receiver depth chart. And the question was, especially after Olave chose to come back, how are you going to make all these dudes happy? You're not. They only play 3 dudes at wide receiver, and they play them 300 snaps in those 8 games, right? It was Jamison Williams, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson. Behind them, G. Scott, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. You know,
Julian Fleming.
Yeah, right? The number 1 player in the country for ESPN and the number 1 wide receiver overall, right? They have dudes, okay? But if you're going to win national championships, you got to have dudes 1 through 85. And the only team that has not won a national championship that has had dudes 1 through 85 for the last 5 years, University of Georgia. Right. Hence the reason I put into the headline, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, because Texas had them dudes. Texas had them dudes last year. Texas was my pick to threaten Oklahoma for the Big 12 championship, and Iowa State said, "Hold this, Texas." I'm saying, like, that's why it keeps coming back around in the Longhorns, right? Is when I look at the composite, when I look at the rankings, when I look at where the kids are coming from and where they're choosing to go. You go to Alabama, you're going to play for a national championship, you're going to win one. Every kid that has come through Alabama that has stayed for 3 years has won a national championship in the Nick Saban era. Ohio State, we went to the Fiesta Bowl in 2019. We were playing in the national championship game in 2020. The weakest position on our offense will be quarterback. And we got 2 4-stars and a 5-star there, right? That's what I expect Texas to be.